SP4 Weir John Randolph, U.S. Army Norfolk. SSGT Weiss Raymond Douglas, U.S. Army Garden Grove. PFC Wetzel Kelly Wayne, U.S. Marine Corps, Spring Valley. CPL Welch Michael Allen, U.S. Army Crockett. PFC Welch Richard Ernest, U.S. Army Lakeside. CPL Weller II Robert Allen, U.S. Army Miraloma. PFC Wells Richard Kenneth, U.S. Army Canoga Park. PFC Wells James Edward, U.S. Marine Corps, Tulare. PFC Wells Jr. Frank, U.S. Army San Francisco. SP4 Wen Ban Broussard, U.S. Army Redondo Beach. CN Wenzel Norman Bryan, U.S. Navy Torrance. Captain Weisinger Ralph Robert, U.S. Air Force San Mateo. SSGT Wentworth John Vester, U.S. Army Santa Clara. GMG2 Wentz Michael Allen, U.S. Navy Lompoc. LCPL Wetzel Jeffrey Raymond, U.S. Marine Corps San Francisco. PFC Wenzel Robert Albert, U.S. Army Hespersia. Sergeant Werner Norbert Otto, U.S. Army Cyprus. Sergeant Werner Wallace Bruce, U.S. Army Sacramento. SP4 Werner Odell Jack, U.S. Army Los Angeles. W.O. Werner Stuart Arthur, U.S. Army Sacramento. SP4 Westneck Richard Allen, U.S. Army Camarillo. SP4 Weslowiski Jeffrey Scott, U.S. Army Ukiah. PFC WESOLOWSKI Jr. Alvin John, U.S. Army Cupertino. W.O. Wieselman Gary Leroy, U.S. Army Montebello. LCPL West Russell Udell, U.S. Marine Corps Orange. PFC West James Oscar, U.S. Army Berkeley. Sergeant West Bobby, U.S. Army Orange. SP4 Robert Wilkes, U.S. Army Huntington Beach. SP4 West Jr. James Clifford, U.S. Army North Hollywood. W.O. West Bay Gaylord Lee, U.S. Army Hanford. LCPL Westbury Vincent Douglas, U.S. Marine Corps Los Angeles. Welcome home, heroes. LCPL Westburg Ronald Van, U.S. Marine Corps Sacramento. SP5 Westcott Gary Patrick, U.S. Army Pomona. PFC Western Aaron Harold, U.S. Marine Corps Los Angeles. SP4 Western Robert Hugh, U.S. Army Engleville. LCPL Weymouth Theodore Gay, U.S. Marine Corps, Torrance. PFC Wall, WHALEY, Loy Neal, U.S. Army, Sacramento. SP4, WHALEY, James Goodwin, U.S. Army, Sacramento. PFC Wheatley, William George, U.S. Army, San Francisco. CPL Wheeler, Nicholas, U.S. Army, San Diego. PFC Wheeler, Daryl Eugene, U.S. Army, Live Oak. Sergeant Wellland, Michael Patrick, U.S. Army, San Francisco. Whipkey, Richard Allen, PFC Whipkey. Richard Allen, U.S. Army, Long Beach. LCPL Whipple, Clifford Leroy, U.S. Marine Corps, Downey. Sergeant Wisenant, John William, U.S. Army, Venice. LCPL Wisenhunt, James Henry, U.S. Marine Corps, Crescent City. CPL Whittaker, Jerry Lee, U.S. Army, Chula Vista. PVT Whitaker, GW, U.S. Army, Oakland. SP4 Whitaker, Michael Joseph, U.S. Army, Los Angeles. Captain White, Donald Herbert, U.S. Army, Lafayette. CPL White, Darvin Charles, U.S. Army, Ramona. CPL White, Leonard Ray, U.S. Army, Watsonville. FSGT White, William Henry, U.S. Army, Coalinga. PFC White, Johnny Bryan, U.S. Army, Pacifica. PFC White, Franklin Ralph, U.S. Army, West Sacramento. PVT White, Monette Vaughn, U.S. Army, San Diego. Sergeant White, Richard Allen, U.S. Army, Monterey. SP4 White, Ralph Eric, U.S. Army, Compton. SP4 White, Jeffrey Merrill, U.S. Army, San Francisco. Captain White Jr., William Joseph, U.S. Army, Orange. SP4 White Jr., John Herbert, U.S. Army, Anaheim. BM3 White Sr., Charles Mott, U.S. Navy, Lathrop. W.O. Whitehead Jr., Charles F., U.S. Marine Corps, Mill Valley. SP5 Whiteman, Richard Lee, U.S. Army, Pasadena. Captain Whitesides, Richard LeBreau, U.S. Air Force, Stockton. Welcome home, heroes. PFC Whiting, Richard Edward, U.S. Army, Pico Rivera. PFC Whiting III, Malcolm D., U.S. Marine Corps, Granada Hills. PFC Whiting III, Malcolm D., U.S. Marine Corps, not listed. SP4 Whitley, Emmanuel David, U.S. Army, Stockton. CPL Whitlow Jr., Thomas James, U.S. Army. Paulus Verde Peenan. PFC Whitnor, Richard Allen, U.S. Marine Corps, Hawthorne. PFC Whitson, Jimmy Allen, U.S. Marine Corps, San Bernardino. PFC Witt, Mark Allen, U.S. Army, Hollywood. SSGT Whitted Robert Albin, U.S. Army, Fresno. PFC Witten Patrick Anthony, U.S. Marine Corps, Hanford. SP4 Witten David Elga, U.S. Army, Los Angeles. 2LT Whittener Mark Crosby, U.S. Marine Corps, Whittier. PFC Horton Dwayne Jefferson, U.S. Army, McKinleyville. 1LT Why Not Jeffrey Lyle, U.S. Army, San Clemente. PFC Widener John Edward, U.S. Army, Ventura. MAJ Wiggins Wallace Luttrell, U.S. Air Force, Whittier. SP4 Reitman III David Lloyd, U.S. Army, Fair Oaks. SP4 Wickley Ricky Lynn, U.S. Army, Concord. LCRD Wilder Paul Arthur, U.S. Navy, Chula Vista. PFC Wilder Arliss Clayton, U.S. Army, El Monte. LCDR Wiles Marvin Benjamin, CHR, U.S. Navy, San Diego. SSGT Wilkes Robert Lee, U.S. Army, Corona. Sergeant Will Frederick Ree, U.S. Army, Whittier. PFC Richard Jr. Frederick R., U.S. Marine Corps, Glendora. SP4 Wilnut Richard James, U.S. Army, Citrus Heights. SSGT Willie John James, U.S. Army, West Covina. 2LT Williams David George, U.S. Army, Sacramento. CPL Williams Craig Emery, U.S. Army, Lakewood. CPL Williams Richard D., U.S. Army, San Bernardino. CPL Williams Larry Ellis, USP Marine Corps, San Jose. CWO Williams Robert Alwyn, Army, Napa. FSGT Williams Richard Frank, U.S. Army, San Leandro. CLPL Williams James Alex, U.S. Marine Corps, Bishop. LCPL Williams John David, U.S. Marine Corps, Claremont. To all you heroes, may you never, ever, ever be forgotten. God bless. This was an honor. Amen.